Good evening, everyone. Well, you've heard what James said. This movie was made very quickly, or this film was made very quickly, and I'll go back to August this year, where I had the pleasure of viewing a film depicting the stories of 3 Albanian families that migrated to Australia. As a second-generation Australian of Albanian parents, I watched this film with great interest, recognising people that are part of my close-knit community, both from the hard-working tobacco farmers in Medi, far north Queensland, and the orchardists from Shepparton here in Victoria. The film was called Australia My Home, an Albanian Migration, and was created by local Albanians in our community. An interview with Professor James Barry caught my attention, and as he talked about his research on the history of Albanians in Australia, which apparently began years earlier with the accidental purchase of an Albanian dictionary. It got me thinking about all the stories I grew up listening to at the kitchen table. My mum and dad talking about life in Australia within the Albanian community. So the very next day I took a chance and sent an email to James, asking if he could perhaps have a look at a presentation I'd created about my family. I'd been using that presentation as part of a school project presentations on immigration in Australia, and I presented it at different schools. I told him about my dad, who as a 16-year-old had immigrated to Australia alone, had served in the Australian Army during World War II, and then how he eventually met and married my mother and started their life together, bringing up a family in Australia. James was quick, he replied right back that very day. Through his own research, James has already come across information about my dad and his service in the Australian Army. James expressed an interest in interviewing my family for his next project as part of an educational program from the Department of Veterans Affairs. And so it began. A month later, James and Simon visited our family farm in Kyabram in the Golden Valley, where my parents had worked the orchard and raised our family. They visited Dad's grave in Shepparton, where he was buried with military honours, and apparently he was the first Australian soldier to have the Crescent on his plaque. It took many, many months for the Department of Veterans Affairs to research that and to get it right. James and Simon arranged for an interview with my mum and my siblings a couple of weeks later. James came prepared with his questions, and Simon set up his camera, and we had a lovely afternoon listening to each other's stories, remarkable stories of a remarkable life. So here we are tonight, just a few months later, and lots of work in the background. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank James and Simon for producing this documentary, this important story of these men, immigrants, who offered their service and bravely fought for our country during the Second World War.